Hello friends, today we'll discuss the most important thing, raising boys properly from a doctor's perspective. I frequently encounter adults whose health was neglected as children, presenting with conditions like gynecomastia, various diseases and cancer. And all of this could have been prevented for the child if only, as it seems to me, you knew some basic things. And honestly, I was surprised at how things that I, not even being a doctor, already knew, you don't know. Watch this episode until the end. I'll talk about important things that each of you should know if you plan to have a child in the future. These things can sometimes even help you save your child from developing cancer and more. I'll start with a story. Not long ago, I had a patient, and this is actually a fairly common case, when we remove testicular cancer. This typically occurs at ages 25, 30 or 40. At 40, it's a time of sexual maturity. And almost every third patient had the same problem. And the problem started in childhood. Their testicles descended into the scrotum later than usual. You heard correctly. In premature babies, the testicles don't always descend into the scrotum immediately. And that's normal during the first months of life, on average about 3 months, sometimes up to 6 at most. The testicles are not in the scrotum, but as you know, the testicles need to be in the scrotum for their normal functioning. And the paradox is that if you missed this moment, if you didn't feel your child's testicles while bathing them or didn't do an ultrasound, you could miss this very important point. What will happen? First, even if the testicle can be brought down, if you discover this at 2 or 3 years old, it's unlikely that it will be brought down. And if it is brought down, that testicle will be like a powder keg, which, when he is 18 or 20 years old, could lead to your child, God forbid, developing cancer. That's why this is a very simple surgery, and it's very easy to avoid this problem. Just make sure that by the age of at least 6 months, the testicles have already descended into the scrotum. So, where are they if they're not in the scrotum? The testicles may be in the abdominal cavity or inguinal canal, or absent altogether. If not felt, it doesn't always mean they haven't descended. Sometimes they don't develop at all, meaning they're simply absent. And sometimes during surgery, we can't find them. We look for them during the operation and make sure they're not there. We search along the blood vessels. Here's a vessel, and sometimes it just ends blindly. There's nothing there. But if you don't bring them down, the risk is enormous. It's very important. It's very important, especially when you have a small child, to keep track of where the testicles are. I run the adult department, but often in the neighboring operating rooms, my professor, my teacher, operates on children with oncology. Remember, oncology isn't just for people over 50. Even little babies can be affected. It's not about those who smoke, drink, or work in hazardous industries. There are certain types of malignant tumors that affect only children, that affect only a young, rapidly dividing, growing body. These tumors are very aggressive. Everyone thinks that since it's a child, everything is treated so well, everything goes away easily, they respond wonderfully to chemotherapy. No, elderly people have a good prognosis because their own cells divide more slowly, and cancer cells in children have a very poor prognosis. So remember, if a child complains of abdominal pain, if you suddenly feel any lumps in the child, or when you stroke the head, if you notice any kind of lump, if you notice that for some reason the child's stool has changed or there is blood in the stool, in short, all the symptoms I described in the oncology episode can potentially occur in your child as well. If you notice anything alarming, take your child to the doctor promptly to ensure nothing is missed. Because for a child, a day is like several days for an adult. If treatment is started in time, the child can be helped. The most crucial thing is not to miss it. Let's take a look. Well, you naturally said that the head bumps, there can be different things, but for some reason the child's gait has changed. Yes, he started dragging his leg. Or for some reason he started losing consciousness, or for some reason his eye suddenly started to turn, or for some reason he lost his hearing. Anything at all? Yes, these could be brain tumors, for example, or they could be tumors of the hematopoietic system. For instance, I know many children, including acquaintances, whose child has frequent recurring fevers. But there are certain types of malignant tumors, like blood cancer, for example, where with this illness the fever is constant. Instead of taking the child to the doctor for tests, they give antibiotics and use folk remedies. And as a result, month after month, yes, some kind of checkups happen. And only later, when, it's almost time for intensive care, we come to our senses and realize that maybe we shouldn't treat the child at home, but actually take them to the doctor. Don't self-treat or search online for ways to reduce a fever, especially for a child. I'm hesitant to give advice about this. I acknowledge that I'm not a pediatrician and don't claim to be one. However, I do possess knowledge and a medical education. I can read this information correctly, interpret it, and discern what's true and what's not. We still collaborate on pediatric issues. I recognize and share this. If your child has a fever, investigate the cause. Some children have been circumcised. Let's discuss 3 things right away. First, about circumcision. It's actually a terrible practice to circumcise children at home, which happens in Eastern families. I'm unsure of the issue. Instead of taking the child to a pediatric urologist for circumcision, some opt for home procedures. You can't imagine how many children are left disabled by what seems like a simple procedure, but when it's done at home. In one of the recent cases, they sent me a photo and asked if I could do something, find someone. I asked what happened. They performed a circumcision at home, and I'll give you the last 2 cases as examples. They cut off the glands along with the foreskin. Can you imagine how someone could do that? This is a very common injury during circumcision. They pull, they cut, and the glands is so small, almost nothing. The child becomes disabled, meaning he has no glands, he will grow up disabled. The circumcision was also done somewhere at home. Usually they do it without any anesthesia. Someone decided to use anesthesia, injected one type of anesthetic right into the penis, an anesthetic drug. He doesn't have a crooked penis, it's just that his small penis fell off. And how is this child supposed to live later when he grows up? He will grow up without a penis. That's why, honestly, friends, I don't recommend this practice of home circumcisions by a mullah or rabbi, because you just don't know, because it's not actively discussed. How many children actually get injured? Religious circumcision is understandable, but there's also circumcision in adulthood. People sometimes visit him at ages 15, 18, or even 20 with phimosis. Phimosis is a narrowing of the foreskin, resulting in a tiny opening and a thin spray-like urine stream. A guy came in, I think he was 18 years old, and he had kidney problems. His kidneys were swollen like blimps. He already had kidney failure. He had a bunch of problems. He was already half disabled. Do you know what the reason was, Emosia? It was that the young man couldn't urinate normally. He had to strain and push. This issue, which he had since childhood, was simply overlooked. Because of this, part of his bladder was damaged, and because of this, his kidneys were damaged too. Children often come to our center for treatment, to the pediatric department, basically to treat their kidneys and bladder. And when they try to do a cystoscopy, not me, but the staff of the pediatric department, they find a very simple problem. You know, there's a saying, for want of a nail, the war was lost. This small problem can lead to big consequences. You ask, does everyone need it to open? No, that's all. For many children, the foreskin doesn't retract, and that's normal. It often starts to retract when the penis begins to grow. How can you understand? First, if a boy keeps reaching down there with his hand when he pees, if it burns or hurts there, or if his urine test results are bad. But the most important criterion, how to understand whether phimosis needs surgery or not. If your child is a boy, I'll say, a guy, look at his foreskin. If, when he urinates, his foreskin swells up. That's a clear sign that the pressure formed in the urinary tract is higher than what his external urethral opening allows. The foreskin narrows the opening, preventing proper urination. And by the way, this can cause problems. It can lead to hygiene issues. It can cause problems with the bladder. That's why it swells up. You should consult a urologist to address the problem. Circumcision may be required. I remember times when dust was probably something significant, but in my understanding back in Asia, the ecology was actually pretty good there. It's household dust, but there are also skin particles in it. And now look at how many children growing up in big cities have allergies. Because today's dust doesn't just consist of natural things anymore. It's not just made up of fibers, but of all the synthetic materials that surround us. If you take dust, for example, just as an example, why doesn't a curtain catch fire or why doesn't a sofa burn? Our composition includes synthetic flame retardants which severely impact children with allergies. These retardants are present in the dust around us. And all this leads to the child developing an allergy. And that's why wet cleaning is, first of all, the child's health. That's why you need to regularly do wet cleaning at home. This source of allergens should be removed, as it's not good for the child who walks and crawls everywhere, or for adults. So an air freshener, a humidifier, or maybe, I don't know, a robot vacuum cleaner. Let it help with this regular cleaning. It's very necessary and very important to do, otherwise the child will grow up with allergies. This explains the rising percentage of asthma and allergy sufferers, particularly in large cities. Does that mean everyone needs to move to the suburbs, live there, and raise their children there? No, that's not what it means. To understand, you must know the origins. You know, people hear all this and then end up sitting around with foil hats on their heads. No, I'm not suggesting that at all. But if you understand where the harm is coming from and you have an easy way to fix it, there's no need to demonize things like saying all problems come from dust or all problems come from phimosis. No, you know what? Your child's health is a picture made of separate pieces, allowing you to remove elements from various parts. It's like a healthy lifestyle. It's not just about wanting to be healthy, go for a run, or if you want to do something else. Avoid smoking, exercise regularly, eat fruits and veggies, and get sufficient sleep. You need to build your health, like putting together a puzzle from different pieces. Especially when you guys are strong and healthy, you can handle anything and do it all. But children depend on you, and they will repeat these things and pass them on to their own kids. That's why it's very important to pass on all these things, the culture of health, this health ethic, first and foremost. The next point is nutrition. Many believe that if a child likes a food, they will eat and enjoy it. You'll likely eat what you cook for yourself. And it's also what you ate while you were carrying him, and what you feed him while he is developing and his microbiota is forming. Neurophysiologists and neurobiologists say that the first 5 or 6 years of life are especially critical. That's why there are children who love sweets, love fatty foods, love to eat things like khachapuri, and there are children who eat more or less properly. These taste preferences, sometimes even for what seems like disgusting food. Abkhazian mamaliga is an acquired taste. It's the same here. You will be attached to and inclined toward what you were accustomed to in childhood. So develop the right habits. And don't think you can just sit around, drink Coca-Cola, eat chips, snack on sweets, and munch away. And if you do all that yourself, because you probably do, then you tell your child to eat peas. What, is he a fool or something? Of course he wants it. It smells good to him and he'll always want it. So when you tell your son, well, don't smoke, but you're sitting there smoking yourself, it just doesn't work that way. Attention is a crucial factor in social health. When discussing health, it's often a key topic that comes up. Well, we started with oncology, but social health, by the way, also affects immunity and everything else, and even sexual development. A child needs attention at 1 month, at 1 year, and at 15 years old. And trying to replace this time, this social contact with money or with gadgets, like people do now, putting on a cartoon like Peppa Pig or something, you still need to try to take these things away from children, take them away. That's all because it's not the best way to train neural connections. How should a person actually develop neural connections? Socialization is crucial for mental health. A computer can't replace the importance of communicating with real people. When you spend less time communicating with your child, don't assume they're just growing up. We used to run outside, leave in the morning, and nobody knew where we were playing in the yard until 10. But now everyone lives in the electronic world. A child needs to be developed not only physically, but also psycho-emotionally, helping them build neural connections. One of the really cool methods, by the way, is something my father practiced on me, for example. He enrolled me in 2 sports when I was little, well, actually 3. Swimming is good for your joints, it's a great way to develop your lungs, it's a good way to train your cardiovascular system, and by the way, it also helps support your immune system. The second one was tennis. Reaction, speed, coordination, agility, and the competitive aspect are also very important, so that a child gets used to competing with friends from an early age. Third, probably the most important for training cognitive function, for training neurons, I had a chess school, and I played at the chess school, and I played with my dad, and I always wanted to try to beat my dad, to win. That's also a great training method. We've covered various sports, but I'm still curious, what exactly did you do, and what do you think it gave you? If you write that in the comments, I will be, first of all, very grateful. And those guys who are now thinking about where to send their child, after reading, might find something really useful for themselves and understand what really works. I've shared my experience, so please share yours in the comments below. Seriously, it's interesting. Next up, gadgets. Of course, you can't get away from them. They're going to be around. And now I have a mobile phone too. Even little kids starting from first grade walk around with gadgets nowadays, which wasn't the case when I was in college. The problem lies not only in the gadget's provided information, but also its influence. A child sits and looks at the screen, shining light on their photoreceptors at night, naturally disrupting their circadian rhythm. So the body gets confused and doesn't understand whether it's night or day right now. Because what is the key to healthy sleep? Remember the episode about sleep. It's sleeping in the dark, sleeping in a cool environment, and sleeping in silence. As a result, they fall asleep with headphones on And secondly, they stare at a bright screen until late at night. The issue isn't that the child won't get enough sleep, but that sleep phases are disrupted, sleep is shallow, and the child doesn't recover, which may negatively impact school performance and academics. The hormones that are supposed to be released at night, this is a very important period, it's a period of recovery. For him, they will decrease. He may lag behind in some aspects of mental development. And this can also have a negative impact on the future state of his endocrine system when he grows up. It's crucial to put away gadgets before sleep. No sleeping with headphones. Remove them and let him sleep in the dark. Teach him proper sleep habits and sleep hygiene from early childhood. By the way, share in the comments how you manage to wean your child off gadgets. Because in reality, many people, when they realize they need to take gadgets away, can't actually do it. It doesn't work out because they themselves use them too. My godmother threatens to withhold gifts if I misbehave, saying she won't give me the gadget or other things unless I listen. So it's already a kind of bargaining, a point of manipulation, and it's hard to do without it now. So they take it away and say, if you behave, I'll give it back to you. So share with us, how do you deal with kids? How do you get through to them that they need to spend less time on their phones? Sterility. This episode turned out to be a long one. I can already feel it. Many people will now strive for perfection. I mentioned dust, and people tend to go to extremes, either doing nothing at all or going to the opposite extreme. Studies show that if a child lives in sterile conditions, especially during the first few years of life, when you worry about every little sneeze, when you're like, oh no, God forbid he gets sick, his risk of all autoimmune diseases increases in the future, and he'll have a weak immune system. So, the children who get sick very often nowadays are the ones who didn't get sick in early childhood. The point is, children who grow up in these super sterile conditions, where every speck of dust is blown off them, where their pacifiers are wiped, where their hands are wiped, they don't have contact, and the risk of developing lymphoid tissue tumors increases. In other words, they have a higher risk of developing lymphoma. Imagine if not allowing your child to get sick during childhood increased their cancer risk. Terrible, right? I recently discussed breastfeeding with Professor Dubinin. There are mothers who want to preserve the beauty of their breasts. In some cases, the breast is unable to produce milk. Stopping breastfeeding too early is a critical mistake. Babies should be breastfed for at least 1 year. A lot will depend on this. His immunity will depend on this. His health will depend on this. His future reproductive function, hormonal balance, microbiota, mental development, and bond with his mother will all depend on this as well. Breastfeeding is crucial for a child's development until 1 year old. While not mandatory after that, science recommends breastfeeding for the first year if possible. The main question is about vaccinations. It's my favorite question. And constantly, whenever someone has a baby, they call about vaccinations, asking if they need to do it, about vaccinations. There are two camps, pro-vaccination and anti-vaccination. But the truth usually lies somewhere in the middle. Vaccinations, of course, it's a wonderful invention. And you really can't do without them either. Many diseases would have wiped out humanity if there were no vaccinations. And when people ask me whether to get vaccinated or not, I say, listen, I'll advise you not to do it right now. Your child will get sick with exactly the disease the vaccine was meant to prevent. If I tell you to vaccinate, you'll blame me if your child gets sick from the vaccine. If I say not to, you'll still blame me. Honestly, it's best not to advise anyone. Let people decide for themselves. For my own child, I would vaccinate them with only the necessary ones. I wouldn't unnecessarily vaccinate against the flu or anything not needed. There is a vaccination schedule for children approved by the standard. Just follow that, do the strict minimum. That's what needs to be done. Puberty is also an important period for every child. If you start noticing that your child has become less active, if he starts developing female-like breasts, that's gynecomastia. If he doesn't have hair in the armpit area, the pubic area is hairless and the chest is hairless. He doesn't shave, he's already 25 years old, we've already missed everything possible. But there's a period when your child should already be changing, and for everyone this period is different. In every family it's a little different depending on your, so to speak, gene pool. For some, it's at 13 or 14 years old, for others it's 16 or 17, late puberty. But if you notice that the boy not only doesn't shave, but also starts to become more feminine, like the things I mentioned. Chubby, wide hips, narrow shoulders. Please take the child to get checked for endocrine disorders, because many people think he'll outgrow it. Everything will be fine. Here's a simple example of how you can harm your child. There are conditions where if you miss the right moment, you won't be able to make up for it at 25 years old. Because, for example, the formation of the penis, which you missed because he went through puberty, with low testosterone levels, the penis will end up being smaller than it should have been. The child must live with the consequences. Administering testosterone or gonadotropin at age 20 won't change anything. The second is gynecomastia. If you catch it in time, and it doesn't necessarily have to be hormones. That is, put him on a diet, get him into sports, compensate for any deficiencies, eliminate the cause that led to the development of gynecomastia, and the child will grow up healthy. If not, and it's juvenile gynecomastia, it will remain with him forever, making him self-conscious and forced to live with it. And I was the same way. I walked around like that, and for some reason my gynecomastia was missed. I ultimately had surgery for it around the age of 20. This could have been avoided if my parents had paid attention to it at the time and taken me to a doctor, because this issue will only get worse. When your child tries to lose weight, his chest doesn't go away, and he's only losing weight because of his chest, because his chest annoys him, because he's embarrassed to take off his shirt, because he's embarrassed to wear tight shirts, even though he wants to. He loses all motivation to lose weight, take care of himself, and gives up on himself entirely. He's losing weight, but his chest remains unchanged, preventing him from achieving his goal. That's why there are signs of delayed sexual development on the outside. Be sure to take him to an endocrinologist and get him checked. You need to find out whether something needs to be done or not. Recently, a Chechen man with a beard came to me and said, "My son's beard isn't growing, he's 11 years old. Come on, what beard at that age? Get real." The key is not to make this a farce, just stick to the basics. This footwear is actually very important because we all choose shoes for our children mainly based on how they look to us. And we don't really care whether there's flat feet or what kind of arch support is in there, do we? If you are careless about choosing shoes for your child and let your child go running and you buy them some kind of Converse, I don't know. Yeah, with flat feet, nothing good awaits their back. Important things like hardening. There must be hardening. Not only about getting the child used to a towel, a contrast shower. Gradually, of course, this needs to be done. Hardening is also very important in the sense that you shouldn't dress the child like a cabbage. That is, you need to give the child the opportunity to be in slightly cooler conditions. Don't worry if your child gets a little draft. We're all afraid they might catch one, but it's not a big deal. No need for long johns. You need to get the child used to it, and you need to give them a strong immune system. Help them boost their immunity rather than shielding them from every minor draft. You can find various tips, principles I follow, and the knowledge I share on my Telegram channel. I'll definitely leave a link to it below this video, so click on the Telegram channel, subscribe, and please absorb this knowledge and become healthy people. Don't give unnecessary antibiotics or medications to your child. Let them be healthy, give them vitamins, provide a balanced diet, and help them build up their immunity. But don't stuff them with antibiotics, because everything you give them in childhood can have very harmful effects. And don't think that it's easy to reverse all of this later on. Thanks for watching the entire episode. I hope it was useful. Thanks for supporting my work and subscribing to my channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to do so. This is very useful content, and by promoting this content, this type of content, I think we're changing a huge number of lives in our country, and not just in our country, for the better, together with you.